fizz. Good morning, everyone. Today is April the 22nd. It is Wednesday. Yesterday, you had a test over the last unit dealing with the Enlightenment. I noticed that a number of people neglected to take that. And that's fine, although probably none of the people I'm talking to neglected to take that, obviously. But that's okay. But anyway, yes. Today we begin a new unit on my favorite topic, revolution and romanticism. Revolution, not so much. Romanticism, definitely. I like romanticism. Romanticism, to define it as I tried to define it, if you looked on, once again, to find the study guide, please look in Canvas under assignments. It is there. While I'm yapping about in general about romanticism, you can pull that up if you like. The cool thing about doing this on your computer, if you pull up the notes, you have your keyboard in front of you. Anything you want to write in there, you can just write in there. It's actually pretty cool. Who knows? Maybe I should start doing this whenever this Corona thing finally works its way, gets out of here, whenever that day may be. Maybe I'll change the way that I teach. Maybe I'll sit behind a desk and put the notes up on the board, yap. I like that idea, but I also know that the way that my room is configured, and I'm sure you've all been there, if I sit here, with the exception of Mr. Halleck and Mr. Pugh and some other of my good friends like them, everybody will sit in the far corner of the room. Yeah, and as if to try to, I don't know, see how I sound from across the room because it's more appealing to hear me across the room. I know that's the reason why they would do that. So I don't know. Or maybe I will get a laptop and plug the laptop up into that might be a way too. And I could sit on my podium and then broadcast and see everyone. And they would still sit in the far corner of the room. But, to be real honest, I wish for those days again when, I would sit there and look across and remind certain people to wake up. Remind certain people to wake up. Shut and lock the door for people who don't come to class on time. Those were the good old days. Yell at somebody for not having their hood on. Yeah, those were the good old days, definitely. But they'll be back again. So, what shall we talk about today? Well, hopefully you've pulled up your Romanticism, Revolution, and Romanticism study guide. I'm just pulling up mine and adjusting it. You can tell that this whole thing is getting to me. So last night I had a dream. I dreamed that, you ever seen that Geico commercial where the two renters, the married couple, are, we really like our apartment, and, but it has a bit of a clogging problem. and you start hearing cooking, and it's upstairs. The family upstairs is a family of cloggers, and that's really funny. I dreamed that I was a clogger. I dreamed that everywhere I went, I was clogging, and that I went into a store, shopping while clogging. And this man and woman kept following me around, trying to pick my pockets. I don't know. What does that mean? It means I've been in quarantine too long, to be honest. But yeah. So, let's talk about this unit. I do think we'll finish this unit. Right now, I'm tentatively going to schedule the test on this unit for, we'll say for next Friday. Yeah. And if we have to move it back, we will. But I don't think we'll have to move it back from Friday, a week from Friday, which is May 1st. May 1st. A week from Friday is May 1st. Yeah. And then May 13th. What is it they used to say on Saturday Night Live? We are out of here. Which used to have a lot more appeal than it does now. Yeah. We're not out of here. We're out of school. Yeah. All right. And I've told my AP Euro guys this. I don't think I've told you guys this. But particularly in AP Euro, and maybe in your class as well, I've been predicting that at some point in time, there would come this disease that was highly communicable and also deadly, and also had human beings, we have no vaccine for it. And how epidemiologists, people who study epidemics, said that that day is coming. And I used to say, oh, that day is coming. I just thought it'd be long after I was gone. Come on, vaccine is all I can say. Because right now, if you think about it, right now, our best strategy against this disease is to hide from it. I mean, think about that. Our best strategy is to hide from the disease. Because, we don't have immunity and there are no vaccines just yet. Should that make you scared? No, it just, you hide from it. I hide from it. So, on that happy thought, let us continue. And there are happy thoughts. I was telling my AP class, AP Euro class yesterday. And this coronavirus, it is a bad thing. It is a terrible thing. It is wrecking the economy. For example, I, being 63, am looking at retirement within a few years. And I've saved many, many years in funds, stock funds. Well, those funds are taking a beating. They are just bleeding, hemorrhaging, since all this. And I'm not really too worried about that because I'm really not thinking about retiring too soon. So yeah, for those of you who aren't taking this course seriously, I'll be back here next year. We can take it together again. But that really shouldn't happen. But, and so, it is terrible, but still, we're not hunkering down, avoiding bombings. We still are basically, we're not being deprived. I often compare what we go through, and I'm not just talking about the more impoverished places of the world. I'm talking about places like Syria, where children live in hiding, and war zones and things like that, or even comparing us to World War II. people who lived in Europe during World War II. We're not enduring that. Yeah, I mean, this virus is hopefully a once in a generation thing, but as far as hardships, I don't remember people in World War II complaining about that there was nothing to watch on television. Or boredom, particularly. And so, what do? You play the hand you're dealt going forward. Okay, and enough of that, Johnny. We spent 10 minutes and we haven't talked a thing about this chapter. And so now by this time, I hope that you do have the unit, Arts and Humanities, Revolution and Romanticism, up. As discussed all too briefly in the previous chapter, this so-called Age of Reason brought about changes in the way that Western man thought about himself, about his universe, his religion, and his government. As the intellectuals of Western Europe began more and more to question the long accepted truths, in other words, basically what the Roman Catholic Church told them what to think, they also began to experiment and use scientific method to find the answers that before had been simply accepted as witchcraft, or they accepted the answer because the church said it was this way. The movement first began in the sciences of astronomy and migrated to more localized, in other words, more close fields of inquiry, meaning biology, until man finally began to apply logic and reasoning to his rulers and his religion. Mistake. So when you're here on mine, John Locke, and not Thomas Jefferson, John Locke said that all men are entitled to certain natural rights, that chiefly amongst these are life, liberty, and property. That's John Locke, by the way. It's not Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson plagiarized John Locke. Thank you so much. People started to question whether or not a king or prince who was not elected had a right to control their lives. And eventually this questioning led to the great revolutions of the 18th century, meaning the American and the French Revolution. And we will spend a short amount of time talking about each one. Notice that the American Revolution, which begins in 1776 and is over with by 1783, falls within that timeline of the Age of Reason, which goes from 1687 to 1789. However, the French Revolution, which begins in 1789, comes outside of the Age of Reason. That's not a mistake, not a coincidence or anything like that. The French Revolution is a very different animal from the American Revolution. The French Revolution actually took the ideas of the Enlightenment and really tried to create an enlightened society, which is a nice idea. It sounds like an enlightened society, except that they wanted to change the way people thought about everything, including their religion, including human relationships, to change the way people had done things, to take away, the belief in God, for example, and replace with something else, which we'll get to. So anyway, while the American Revolution has for over 2 centuries been presented to the world as being the result of no taxation without representation, and democracy and self-rule, that's a nice fairy tale. Yeah, I mean, it's a fairy tale, and I don't care. My American history teachers, we can go fight out in the parking lot one day. But yeah, that's not exactly the truth. At the heart of this argument were moneyed interests. Remember that the founding fathers had one thing in common. Actually, three things. They were rich white guys. Yeah, all of them, all the founding fathers, rich white guys. Many of those rich white guys, slave owners, including George Washington and the aforementioned Thomas Jefferson. And as much as we like to romanticize George Washington and Thomas Jefferson as being, these these, larger than life, and I guess they were larger than life, but also as these very highly moral individuals, they were slave owners. Slave owners made slaves work for them by either the fear of physical punishment or physical punishment itself. Yes, the father of our country probably, on more than one occasion, probably beat the hell out of some poor slave so that that slave would work harder, faster, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we know what Thomas Jefferson did with his female house slave. And I can't remember her name now. Mr. Halleck, do you remember her name? What was her name? Yeah. Sally Hennings, sorry. Yes, Sally Hennings. He kept her as a sexual surrogate. I mean, Thomas Jefferson's wife was not particularly well. And, Thomas Jefferson can't be expected to not have sex. And so this woman, Sally Hennings, is a slave. That was his regular sexual surrogate. The thing of it was, she didn't have a whole lot of say in the matter. So was it rape? Answer, hell yes. Yeah. But yeah, Thomas Jefferson, that guy whose face is on Mount Rushmore, one of the founding fathers, author of the Declaration of Independence, who said all men are created equal. Obviously, he meant all white men, but I'm getting way off the topic, okay? Back to the matter at hand. Money. I mean, why? So what does money have to do with the American Revolution? Well, for one thing, after the French and Indian War, the English government was in debt. And what the English government tried to do was to get the 13 colonies to pay for the debt. How did they do that? Well, the way the mercantilist economy was set up between the 13 colonies in England, American businessmen, particularly American planters and farmers, had to sell their produce to English corporations, buyers, etc. And the buyers set the price and they kept artificially low. And so for these farmers, including farmers like George Washington, they may have been thought of as wealthy planters, but in actuality, all their money was tied up in land and slaves. To be honest, they weren't necessarily money wealthy. They were actually cash poor. And they knew, though, that they were producing products that in England brought lots of money. But they weren't getting any of that money. And that's it. And that's the cause. I mean, these rich white guys, founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, et cetera, John Adams, who wasn't a slave owner, by the way, wanted to be able to make more money. England prevented them from making money. And then they, of course, now to make this a revolution, though, to make it a revolution, they had to convince, they're not going to die in the fighting. I mean, they're not the ones, the founding fathers, they weren't the ones, they couldn't do it themselves. And also at the same time, they could not convince the common people of the Americas, most of whom were illiterate, hey, fight for us so we can be rich. So what did they do? They wrote this up in their newspapers, in their pamphlets, in their legislators and legislatures, in their debates, the English are infringing upon our rights. Not our ability to make money, but our rights. And so once again, the American Revolution was a rich man's war and a poor man's fight, which they, in their history books, I hate the way history books lie because they do. In your history books, it is portrayed as a debate over, freedoms and things of that nature. Yeah, and it really wasn't. As it says there, all the founding fathers were men of education, sophistication, and wealth, and like I said, a good number of them owned slaves. Many were also the owners of slaves, and as such must have thought that the verse "all men are created equal" meant all white men who owned substantial amounts of property were created equal. And now that's all white men who owned substantial amounts of property were created equal. Yeah, they were equal. So what we're going to do here, hopefully, let's see, if you look at my examples of Romanticism, which I began showing you today, that are in there, that gets us to the end of class. So yeah, I hope you enjoy them, and I hope you're also to understand what makes what I've shown you romantic. We'll get to that later, but I'm just getting you into the mood. And so we're at 20-something minutes of this lecture, which mostly is me rambling on. You also have the 3 videos to look at. Our next test will be a week from Friday, May the 1st. And if you have questions, please contact me. I really appreciate comments made on YouTube. Although I'm thinking a lot of you guys just don't think it's cool to make comments, but that's okay. If you don't think it's cool, but please pay attention. And I'm going to sign off for now. Isn't this class fun? You all have a good day. Get outside and enjoy Earth Day. Good morning, starshine. The Earth says hello.